Hello, everyone. Welcome to the CFPR Lunchtime Seminar. My name is Frank Menger, and we've got a selection of our esteemed academics and researchers, technicians and administrators and organizers and managers here in the room, and quite a few people online as well. So welcome to everyone. Also, very warm welcome to Jack Bullen from the Woolwich Contemporary Art Fair in Woolwich, London. Who's going to take us through some of the mission statements and the activities that are planned for the upcoming Woolwich Print Fair in November. Sorry, did I get this right?
No, November.
Yep, and there is and also just to remind you, and I'm sure Jack will remind you all as well, that there is an international open call for individual artists to join the print fair live at the moment. So please look at the website woolwichprintfair.com for more details on this sort of stuff. So that's a bit of housekeeping. We are recording this session, and hopefully everyone is in agreement there. And the sessions, all those recorded sessions are available in a couple of weeks' time, probably on the CFPR website as well. So without further ado, thank you, Jack, for joining us. Please take the floor.
Thank you very much, Frank. That's very kind of you. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I am going to try and share my screen quickly, and while this loads up, I'm going to show you a little video and some pictures, and I'm going to just talk to you about the fair very briefly, why we set it up, what's unique about the fair, and then some changes that we've done this year that we think will kind of add to what we do and support artists. And then I'll go a little bit through about the open call, and then I will open it up to the room. So hopefully this all works. Hopefully this all works, and I can press play. Excuse the loud noise on the video, but this is just in case those of you haven't seen it. Right, sorry about that noise, but hopefully that gives you an idea, those of you who haven't been to the fair, what it is. It kind of gives you a vague impression of the scale of the fair, and kind of a bit of the vibe. So let me just quickly do a brief introduction on the fair following that. So my wife Lizzie and I set up the fair 9 years ago now, so this is our 9th edition, and we set up the fair to kind of challenge a lot of the misconceptions around printmaking. So you guys, I'm sure, will all be aware of what these misconceptions are. As you can see here, we are looking to challenge the idea of prints being small and twee. We also are kind of there to try and challenge the idea that print is cheap, instantaneous, just printed off a computer. It's a copy of something else. So we run a series of demonstrations, workshops throughout the fair. We invite studios to come in and take over various printing presses on site, and that generally gives the kind of the exciting kind of hands-on vibe at the fair. What makes us unique, other than obviously the fact that we focus solely on contemporary printmaking? We've landed what we think is a really exciting and dynamic model for an art fair. So it's not really ever been done by anyone else, which is this 50-50 split. So 50% of the fare is set aside to galleries in the normal way that most fairs would run. So these artists they bring down, as you can see here, Grayson Perry, David Shrigley, Harlan Miller, etc. So they are bringing some really exciting names down. And that's really exciting. And then the other 50% of the fair we dedicate to artists who apply via our international open call, which I'll speak more of in a second. But we represent these artworks. So these artworks that are chosen from the open call, we as the fair will directly represent those artists and those works. And we will curate them, we will sell them on behalf of the artist, we will advertise the artists and their work to collectors, etc., etc. And so we think this gives us a really exciting dynamic. So we get a lot of artists who are actually taken from the open call and end up getting gallery representation. We are working a lot now with interior designers and hotels, and so providing opportunities to our artists from the open call throughout the year. So not just the fair. But it's a really good platform. We feel that we're giving artists the opportunity to showcase on the scale of the fair that they wouldn't otherwise get without direct gallery representation. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about some of the things we do to support artists through the open call. So getting in via the open call is great. You get to display your work, and hopefully it will be sold. But there's a number of other things we do. So in this case, we have a number of prizes. So I think we're on roughly about 35 individual prizes that are awarded to artists from the open call. So this is the Woolwich Contemporary Print Fair Prize. So it was given to Felicity Warbrick last year. And this is the display. So that the prize is in effect that they get a kind of a solo wall. It's 6 meters wide, and they provide the work there. It's kind of like a solo showcase during the fair. There's other ones we're working with that range from, say, the John Purcell Papers Prize, which is free reams of paper, anything up to we've just launched a prize which will launch for the first time this year, which is the Studio International di Grafica in Venice. So it'll be a month-long residency in Venice with accommodation and at their print studio. So there's a range of things we do there. So it's not just the fair, it's not just getting in to the open call, it's all the other opportunities that are provided afterwards. As I say, we're now also working with a huge range of interior designers, hotels, cruise liners, and we're working with them to provide artwork. So we've now got this database. So whether you are successful or not, you're still on the database that allows us to kind of suggest your works. We take on board, so that they'll come to us and ask us for works that are sort of maybe landscapes that are of a certain style, and we can then send our number of suggestions to them, and then they would buy the works there. So it's turning into an all year round event with the fair as the kind of pinnacle of that. Oh, sorry, I'll go back a bit. So a few other things we do just to support artists. Obviously, you guys are mainly down in Bristol. One of the things we do is the regional drop-off. So there is a drop-off actually in Bristol, but there's all around the country. So there's various drop-offs, and we've previously charged £25 an artwork for those who are dropping them off in one of our regional drop-offs. But we're actually now making this entirely free. So it's completely free to use any of our drop-offs, whether you're in London or Glasgow or Bristol or Cornwall. So That's a big change we've done this year. And then we also have our framing service, which again, I can talk more about later, but in effect, we offer, again, a basic but high quality service that you can use our framing service, send it to our framers in the north of England, and they will frame it according to what you've chosen. So whether you can choose an option between black, white, walnut or oak frames, and single, double, or float mounted. So it's basic, but it's good quality, and we've brought this on board because we realized that a lot of artists were either getting very expensive frames or weren't really or were just getting really poor quality ones. So this we've priced as competitively as possible, so it is probably one of the cheapest options you'll find, but without compromising at all on quality. So, and again, if you were to use that service, you simply send the unframed work to us, and we ship it to the fair, hang it, all free of charge. So there's nothing for you to worry about after that. So a few things that we are instigating this year. As you can see, these are some examples of the installations that we've had at the fair previously. And every year we have a huge amount of installations, large-scale works that are handed in. Problematically, we don't have, despite being a large fair, we are still limited by size. And so when we have artworks, for instance, we've had some last year, I think it might have been a print to be hung on the wall 7 meters wide. It's rather difficult for us to accommodate because, again, if it needs wall space, then we'd have to prioritize probably the 30 or 40 artists that would otherwise not get in over that single work. So what we've done this year, which we're really excited about, is we're partnering with a number of venues in and around the Royal Arsenal. This will be called the Art Trail. So this will be launched a full week in advance of the fair, and it will consist of a number of artworks, installations, large-scale pieces that wouldn't otherwise get into the fair because of practical reasons. They will be displayed in these venues, and they'll be open and free to the public. So it's a nice way of us engaging with the local community, but also showing, really trying to reward and show ambitious applications to the fair. So obviously you can see these are some examples of what we've previously had. We're hoping that we're going to get a number of these this year. And again, last year was kind of really the first year we had a number of 3D printed works. So, again, this might enable us to kind of show more of them as well. Just another image rather than anything differently, but we have this year the director's cut. So we did launch this last year, but it was kind of announced post open call. And so this year the judging process is going to be split into 2 sections. So we're taking the model of the Summer Exhibition Royal Academy model, where there are two stages to the process. So the judges will look through all the works that are applied, and of those works we will shortlist roughly between 800 to 1,000 artworks, and so they will be shortlisted. If you get past that first round, you've got worst case scenario is that your work will end up in the director's cut. So the next round of judging will be undertaken by our team, and we will take into consideration all the judges' scores and their feedback, any practical considerations that we need to be aware of, like the size of works, whether they need to go into the art trail or not. And then we will whittle that down to roughly about 500 works. Obviously, it's more an art rather than a science, because 500 works is kind of the rough kind of magic number, but depends on whether we think the works are much larger in scale or smaller in scale, that we can kind of play around with that number. So those that are ultimately successful will continue as they have done previously. But those works that were shortlisted but weren't chosen will be entered into the director's cut. So this is, we're building on. We've partnered with some like online sales platforms and other partnerships that we've created to make this a really exciting standalone event. So again, the director's cut is effectively taken from cinema, the idea of a film being this amazing film being made, but because of timings, having to cut that down. So these are works that we think are fantastic, really want to highlight, but due to the space that we have available, can't show in person. So this will be an online event. All the works will be for sale, and it will run for roughly a month in July. So we hope that is a really exciting thing and kind of gives people more opportunities when they're applying to the fair. A few very quick other things that aren't necessarily hugely relevant to the open call, but just are worth noting, that we've also launched a VIP lounge this year. This obviously just helps with us getting the right kind of buyers down, and that's proving already really successful. And then we'll also have a dedicated talks and lectures theatre upstairs from the fair. So there'll be more kind of there's more opportunity for us to do some really exciting highlights of certain subjects and so on, and talking points within the wider art world. So the open call, which is currently running. So we've only got about, I think, a week and a half left until the open call. I'd say that 90% of applicants apply in the final week, which is always nice and relaxing for me. But effectively, we've made a few changes to the application process. It should roughly take, if you have everything ready, for instance, you have your artist statement and so on already written, the average application takes roughly 20 minutes, no more than that, maybe 10. So if you've previously applied before, most of the information that you've already submitted the system will now find that for you, and you can make changes to it if you wish. But otherwise, that should also speed up the process. You can the main change we've done this year is that we've asked you to announce whether the work is 3-dimensional or to be hung on the wall as a 2D object. Just because, again, as I said, every year artists will apply with something completely different or so unique that we have to make changes. And so last year we had a lot of 3D printed works, which is really exciting. And so we've made this change to accommodate that. The key is always for us is to try and make a balance between making the application as quick and easy as possible for you to apply, but at the same time, get as much information as we require. It's important to note that we won't take any consideration to, although we do ask for, say, nationality, where you print, where you were educated, etc., etc. This is just for marketing purposes after the fair. So we work quite closely with a lot of embassies to try and promote the open call. So it's useful for us to kind of know what your nationality is, so that we could let, say, for instance, Switzerland last year were really, really supportive. And we then realized it was very difficult to try and let them know who had actually applied from the fair, because we had no idea. Just because they had applied from England didn't mean they were necessarily English. So this is just a quick, easy way for us to promote your work afterwards. But yeah, so the application process is nice and easy. We've made 1 or 2 changes, which I don't think are necessarily worthwhile going through now. I'm going to end sharing my screen, if that's going to work. So I think the best thing now really is I kind of let you guys all kind of ask me questions. I suppose this is the main point of this, is to allow you to kind of ask me questions directly, and I try and give the best answer I possibly can. So if anyone wants to kind of unmute themselves, and I can answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you, Jack, for the talk. So, if anyone has any questions, either type them in the chat or ask them here. So I shall hand on the microphone to Karina.
I'll kick off. Hi, Jack. I'm just curious, actually. I mean, you've obviously got, you've got your 9 years of experience under your belt, as it were. What have you found in terms, especially kind of from the point of view of a business model of being kind of sustainable? We know that selling prints or just having markets is a very kind of unreliable. So what's been your kind of business model in terms of generating money, and how you kind of then use that for the next year? Or talk about money.
A nice easy one. No, I mean, still in development, I would say. There's a number of ways. Obviously, we make money through things like ticket sales, sale of artworks. It's important, I suppose, to add that we do charge, a fee for the open call. So people who apply do get charged. And again, as you kind of leads into your question, really, because the reason we do charge is to do with the model, because we have this 50-50 split, and that is great. But actually, as a business model, doesn't actually make as much money as if we were to just rent the whole thing out to galleries. So we have to kind of make it work financially, which is why we do charge artists for the application. And so we do try and keep the fee as low as we possibly can, and we do add incentives, like if you are unsuccessful, you still get a free ticket to the fair, which kind of goes some way into doing that. But it's a way to kind of mean that we can still provide a platform for individual artists that wouldn't otherwise have that opportunity. So we do think it's so that is one of the ways we've done it. And again, going back to your question about kind of changes, we've moved slightly. We're slightly moving away from being a just solely reliant on sales at the print fair. And so a lot of it is done. We're doing much more in terms of sales in advance. And as I say, we're working with interior designers and things now that is leading to quite a lot of exciting projects down the line. I mean, we're in early talks with two designers about supplying artwork for one 900 room and one 600 room hotel. So that will be exciting. So the idea is, we've got this amazing database of artists on our platform. We've got everyone who's ever applied is on our database. And so because we ask artists to tag their works in advance, it makes it very easy to find kind of what these interior designers are looking for. And so that's kind of where we're pivoting to slightly. So it's not just about the fair, although that is obviously the fundamental part of it, but it's all the other things we do throughout the year.
I think there's a chat question, and then we can come back to the.
Oh yeah, Bree. So
so the question is, sorry, if I can just relate the question again. If a piece is still in progress, is it possible to submit initial planning images, or is this unlikely to be selected as it's a risk? So that's from one of our esteemed MA students.
No, that is totally acceptable. We've got we've had quite a few of these in the past, and I know off the top of my head that we've had at least 4 or 5 got in that were kind of submitted as kind of in progress works. So I don't think that would jeopardize your application, too much risk. Obviously, it is a slight risk in the sense that it's not actually finished, but the judges will judge on what they are seeing in that image. But that's totally acceptable. We have sections when you apply that there's like a note section, so you can let us know within the notes that this is work in progress, and any other concerns you may have. What I think is important just to note is to try and make the image as close as possible to what it's going to try and look like in the end. I think we did have we've had works in the past that got in and it was like a sketch that looked really beautiful, and then it ended up being like a complete collage and looked nothing like so when it turned up in the flesh, it looked nothing like the image that we've been provided with. So that's all I'd ask.
So I think, thanks you, Jack, for replying to that. I think that's probably the risk, that it doesn't look like what it's meant to be in the tin in the first place. Yeah. Any other questions, maybe in the room or online? But thank you for answering that question.
My pleasure.
No, I'm just thinking in terms of what you've seen in the changes over the 9 years. I mean, that's a good stretch in terms of seeing those changes in printmaking tastes and technologies, where maybe there was a lot more digital maybe 10 years ago. Have you seen those kind of shifts and kind of going back to traditional making, or what do you think is that sort of those shifts in tastes and balances and things, and also in terms of the purchasing public, because are people more acceptable about buying an inkjet print, or are they much more around etchings or screen prints or
so I'd say, because there are many ways to sell the works, it is both. Say, I mean, like one of the real changes we've had is obviously with COVID. We went online during COVID, and then since then we've had this kind of hybrid model where we have everything online and we work through Artsy and all of that sort of stuff. So how people have purchased works has changed, because obviously they, the early years they were going to see it in person. So there's obviously been an increase in sales in terms of what registers better digitally. And I think online people tend to go for more colourful works rather than the more traditional sort of intaglio works. But I can't say that there's been a huge change over the years in what people are buying. Because we offer quite a range. What gets into the fair, there's quite a broad range anyway, and people and so and the sales have kind of been quite evenly spread between that. I think every year or so there are sort of shifts in, I suppose, what is applied, like the subject matter, as it were. So I know, for instance, during COVID or the years just following COVID, so like 2021, we obviously had a huge amounts of sort of more kind of romanticized landscape and things like that. But I think last year there was, a little bit of a mix. Again, we haven't really had many things like 3D printing until last year was really the first 3D printed works we had shown. So I'm quite excited and hope that will continue to develop like that trend. And we're looking to try and see if we can get, say, like a 3D printer or a robotic arm in for one of our demonstrations this year, to try and show that range between the traditional and the more innovative works. I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Jack. We have two more questions from the meeting chat. We have Leila asking whether there are any London-based framing services that you would recommend for entering the fair after being shortlisted.
Yeah, so I've got two London-based suggestions, or three actually. So we've got two really good framers. Are Boys Framing, BEUYS, and the Framing Room. So the Framing Room in Brockley, they actually take a stand at the fair, and both of them are really excellent, like really great framers and really high quality. If you're going for a slightly more budget option, I would suggest there is David Mitchell Picture Framers down in Lewisham. But obviously, our framing service as well is pretty much, I'd say, about the same sort of price. So, yeah, hopefully those are some good suggestions.
Thank you. And another question here from Joanne: how are emerging artists or printmakers judged compared to more known established artists? Okay, so how the process works, to give you a little bit of information about the actual process. So Karina will know, because you were on our you were one of the selectors last year, but each judge is given their own online portal which they can log into, and they have roughly 10 days to go through the applications in their own time. So some of them might do it all at once, some of them might do it sort of over a series of evenings. Previously, we had it so we all met up in a venue and spent the whole day together going through the works. But we then found that like one particular judge might be quite vocal and end up swaying the rest of the room. So we felt this is the most is the fairest option. So they get their own portal, and all the works are completely randomized. So there's no point where you might be better off if you your surname began with A or B, and getting all the kind of the scores in early doors. It's kind of completely mixed. So every judge will have a totally different randomized order. But they will see, what the judges see this year certainly is name of the artist, title of the work, the image itself. They will see the tags that we ask you to tag. So this just gives the judge maybe a very quick insight just to see, oh, right, they're focusing on, you know, AI might have been used in this. So they can just give you a very quick kind of feed in. And then we ask for you to provide a tagline. So it's basically your artist statement summed up as succinctly as possible in one sentence, really. So, which I know is obviously quite hard, but obviously we're trying to, you've got to be aware that most judges will be looking between 4,000 to 8,000 works, roughly. Could be more. Hopefully it will be more, but and so it's about trying to provide them with as much information as possible so they can make a really informed decision, but not so much that it's almost impossible for them to get through, and therefore they're kind of not dedicating you know, as much time as they would like. So that, and then obviously the you're also finally given the discipline. And so I wouldn't say that they're taking into consideration. I think everything is just done on what they personally like. So how it works is they will mark that work as either I think it can be they leave it alone, then it's kind of roughly unmarked. If they don't particularly like it, it's kind of they leave it alone. Then they can score it upwards, and we only do positive scoring in the fair. So they mark it as interesting, good, very good, excellent, and then we've got a kind of favourites. And so each of those marks are assigned a number score. And so the higher up you go, obviously the greater the score. And then what happens at the end is that all the judges' scores are all kind of come together, and then the works are kind of ordered, kind of ranked based on what the judges have marked those works at. There's a few other things like algorithms that take into account like
how many times various judges have looked at the works and engaged with them. But yeah, we sort of tweak it every year, but we think we're onto a pretty fair system now. And so that allows, and again, that's why we're also doing the two-stage process, so that we can give more opportunity to more people and then kind of make it fairer, take a deeper dive into things in the second round. Yeah, so hopefully that answered that question.
Yep, thank you very much for that. And there's some interesting thoughts on the selection process. Karina.
Can you share any sneaky peeks as to who are going to be any invited artists this year?
To be honest, I haven't even got around to that this year yet. We'll probably, we reach out. There's a number of people we reach out to each year, it depends on their calendar really, and their galleries and permission, because all these things tends to be when they're more established, you've then got to go through. It's not just dealing with them; it's dealing with the gallery and what exhibitions they've got and so on. So I don't actually have any names, I'm afraid, I can give you, because I haven't actually got round to that stage.
Thank you, Jack. And maybe this is a good opportunity to wrap the lunchtime seminar up.